Ghana is 67 years old. We say happy birthday to the Republic. Good afternoon. Welcome to the 67th edition of Ghana's independence on the Pulse. Here on Joy News, independent, fearless, and credible. And coming up in this holidays edition of the Pulse, President Akufo-Addo optimistic of better days ahead as he conceded we have endured difficult economic conditions in the past few years. Stay for details as he hints of two strategic projects which will turn the fortunes of the economy. We have a special engagement with son of late First President of the Republic, Sekou Nkrumah. Also sees March a date engraved with both promise and skepticism. 7 years ago, we were assured the National Cathedral will be commissioned, but having devolved $58 million in the facility is yet to be ascended beyond ground level. We'll find out why.
Following the program of contractors and with God helping us, the National Cathedral is expected to be officially commissioned on March 6, 2024.
And later in the bulletin, we put a spotlight on Germany's Air Force spying scandal, which has left the country on the defensive. My name is Elton Brobe. This is The Pulse, brought to you by Global Digilu. And of course, we are available on DSTV channel 421, Gold TV 125. We are available around the world at myjoyonline.com. You can join us with your comments, with your questions as we celebrate 67 years of independence here in Ghana. And we are still in the celebratory mood, so let's start from the Eastern Regional Capital, Akufo-Addo, where President Akufo-Addo is optimistic of better days ahead. As he concedes, the country has endured difficult economic conditions in the past few years. Speaking of the 67th Independence Day parade, President Akufo-Addo hinted at two strategic projects which will turn the fortunes of the economy. First being the construction of an aluminum refinery by the Ghana Integrated Aluminium Corporation, and then the Adar Songo Salt project, spearheaded by Electrochem Salt Mine Limited.
Fellow Ghanaians, there's more to preparing a child to face the world than what can be taught in a classroom. And there's certainly more to molding a Ghanaian child than what our hard-working teachers do every day. Too many parents have relinquished the entire responsibility of bringing up children to what happens in schools. I do not refer only to our music, dance, food, language, and fashion that form the basis of our cultural identity. I refer to the values that set us apart as Ghanaians. If we are to take pride in being Ghanaian, there should be a consensus on the values we hold dear, and we should transmit them to every generation. Fellow Ghanaians, I know that we have gone through difficult economic circumstances, but it is clear that we have overcome the worst and we are looking forward to better times. I wish to make reference in particular to two projects coming on stream that should make a great difference to the economic fortunes of our country. I refer to the successful selection of strategic partners that will work with the Ghana Integrated Aluminum Development Corporation, GIADEC, to build a new alumina refinery and develop mines at Nyinahini in Pasaso as 3 or 4 projects being executed under the Integrated Aluminum Industry IAI projects. I witnessed the signing of 2 agreements in Accra recently. Firstly, between GIADEC, a wholly owned public entity, and Rockshore International, a wholly owned Ghanaian private company, selected after a rigorous process as a strategic partner to develop a mine at Nyinahini in Pasaso. And secondly, between GIADEC and Miscellaneous SA, a leading global industrial and energy company, which entails the development of a second mine at Nyinehine in Pasaso and the establishment of an aluminum refinery. We are finally coming to the end of decades of exporting raw bauxite from the country. We shall now refine bauxite mined in Ghana to produce alumina that will feed the Valco smelter and the downstream aluminum industry, which is going to have a dramatic impact on Ghanaian industrialization, where we produce parts for motor vehicles, aircrafts, roofing sheets, and household utensils. It has taken a long time for us to get to this stage. We've taken the trouble to make sure that we get it right. As an indigene, it is my hope that once litigation over the Atiwa forest range in Chebi is settled, we will be able to develop also the Chebi bauxite mine and refinery that will help deliver employment and high-paying jobs for our people, and also ensure integration value addition across the bauxite aluminum value chain. The other major project that is coming on stream, which is bound to make a dramatic change to the economy, is the Adar Songor Salt Project, being spearheaded by Electrochem Salt Mine Limited, led by the dynamic Ghanaian entrepreneur, Mr. Dan McCaughey, aka McDan. After many years of disputes, which prevented the exploitation of salt at the site, work has finally started, and salt will be mined on a large commercial scale. With its initial ability to produce some 650,000 metric tons of salt per annum, and expanding its productive capacity to 1 million metric tons this year, and to 2 million metric tons by 2027, at 99.9% purity, the Electrochem salt mine will be the biggest salt-producing facility in the whole of Africa. These are figures that should spell a significant change in the economy and cheer us up. I am optimistic that together with other initiatives of this government, we are on the verge of a breakthrough in our economic fortunes. I must mention another important ingredient in the democratic structure which is needed for prosperity, which is the rule of law. Businesses can only prosper in an atmosphere that guarantees the rule of law. My compatriots, fellow Ghanaians, the rule of law is not an alien concept. It is not something that can be applied selectively. For it to be effective and have a positive influence, it must be applicable to all aspects of our lives and to all of us, on the streets, in offices and workplaces, to junior officials and chief executives.
So 67 years of independence politically, but economically, can we say same? Is it the kind of Ghana you want after 67 years of independence? You can join us with your comments, with your contribution via our social media handles. But let's explore the issue. 67 years of political independence, whether we've made any headway in terms of our economic growth and being really independent. Dr. Sekou Nkrumah is the last son of Ghana's first president, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, and he joins me from his base in Arizona in the United States of America. Sekou, it's good to have you here on the Pulse.
For having me.
Right, and I guess it is safe to say happy birthday as we celebrate 67 years of independence in Ghana.
Yeah, happy birthday for Ghana. Yeah.
All right, so I mean, quick question: 67 years after independence, if your father were to be alive, will you be happy with the pace of our development?
I don't think so. But I think let's start from the beginning. When he declared independence, I think he linked it to the total liberation of Africa. So he understood that there was this Pan-African dream or vision which he got the inspiration from his days studying in the United States, the inspiration from that whole Pan-African idea. And when you look at the flag, I mean, the black star, that's the symbol of Pan-Africanism. So Nkrumah understood where he wanted to take us. And you see, when you're talking about economics for Ghana, yes, he did try to develop the infrastructure, but he understood that we have to link it to the rest of Africa, even economically. And then, of course, he understood that we have to resist new colonialism, which is, yes, we got our independence, but we are still economically independent to the countries that colonized us, and that was the West and the whole Western powers. So, as you say, yes, we are independent. We've had our ups and downs as a nation. But the overthrow of Nkrumah definitely set us back. And now the difficulty is that we have embraced the Western concept of democracy, which since 1992, I think we've had political stability, but we are struggling with the economic independence. I mean, I was in Ghana last year and you could see the price of goods was just expensive. And I was wondering how the average Ghanaian can survive. Yes, we have our elite, the rich Ghanaians, but in numbers, how many is that? Not even 1% or so. The rest are really not doing very well. And then the middle class is not really growing like in countries in the West and so on. The infrastructure is still very poor. The industries, I mean, I was listening to the speech of the president, President Akufo-Addo, and all those things he was talking about with the industries. And you wonder whether, I mean, can we really call ourselves an industrialized country? No, definitely not. How do we become industrialized? That's the problem, because the West wants to use us for just our raw materials and exploit that, and have done that for years. That was the whole idea of colonizing us. Breaking away from it, that's where the difficulty is, because we don't have the technology, we don't have the capital, and you see that the gold, the oil, and all those resources, mineral resources we have, are being exploited. On our own, I don't think we can make it. So it still goes back to that Pan-African agenda. But as I was saying earlier, because of the overthrow of Nkrumah, I think we lost even the young people of, I mean, I was a baby then, 2 years old.
Right.
But now as a 60-year-old, I mean, when you look at it, we never understood the impact of the overthrow of Nkrumah. I'm not going to look at the internal politics and problems that Nkrumah faced at the time. But I'm looking more at the bigger picture, and that is with the significance of Nkrumah, or Ghana being blessed with an exceptional person like Nkrumah to understand the times and what we needed to do as Africa. And actually, not only Ghana be blessed, but the whole of Africa, because of his vision. And that is why he was voted the African of the Millennium ahead of Mandela, because of that Pan-African vision. So the point is that how do we go back to embrace that vision in today's times? As I was saying earlier, we embraced the Western concept of democracy. We have political stability, but doesn't seem to be solving our economic problems. So I think we need to go back and try to get inspiration from that era, and then find ways of developing a vision. So the leaders of today, I mean, as I was telling you, I'm 60 years old.
Right.
So I would call myself a young person, but there are people behind us. So those in the 30s and 40s, I think they need now to look at inspiration from that era and great leaders we had in the past, but try to develop a vision for us. I think what is lacking in Ghana and the leadership in Ghana today is that we don't have a vision. We have political structures, we have political parties that are fairly strong. I mean, the dominant MPP and NDC.
Okay.
But they are unable to produce leadership that and has a vision to really push this country forward. So what we have is that parties with big support, but unfortunately, they are not able to serve the interests of the country, and they end up engulfed in corruption and so on. Corruption that, if we go back to the Champagne era, that brought Rawlings into the political scene and the whole era of the revolutionary era that we've had. But what is interesting is that after all these years of 10 years of revolution, we still went back to the corruption, and it's even, I think, much more now than it used to be during the Champagne era. And of course, corruption started even from the First Republic and so on.
All right.
With corrupt ministers that Nkrumah had and so on.
We'll have time to talk about the vision, but again, let me ask you, 67 years after independence, we are still exporting gold, cocoa in their raw state. Even today, as we celebrate 67 years, the talk of adding value to our bauxite deposit and all that. I mean, haven't we taken so much time in laying the foundation for economic take-up? And what appears to be the problem as far as you are concerned?
Yeah, as I was saying, because it was interrupted. Nkrumah was trying to build the foundation and so on, building all these industries and the locations. I mean, there was a 7-year development plan and so on with maps and all that showed where the resources were. But that's a long time ago. We've moved on. But again, I mean, we don't really have the capacity to compete in the global world today. So where are we holding the wrong end of the stick in an era of globalization? And that's why I'm saying that if we go back to try to get inspiration from that era and understand how even our independence, we got independence, because people were struggling here. We had leaders, the UGCC and so on. But Nkrumah redefined the agenda. And I'm saying that the cornerstone was Pan-Africanism. So if we can go back to embrace that and get inspiration from it, then I think we can understand that on our own, we cannot do it. So we have to look at things from collectively. So Africa as a whole. If young people can understand that and start working towards it, and then put pressure on political leaders, because as I was telling you earlier, we have consolidated political parties now, MPP, NDC. But we need the leadership within those parties that can redefine the vision that we need to move Ghana forward. And I'm saying we have to link it to the other African countries, neighbors, and so on. So philosophers, they already had the idea of that, okay, we can do it regionally. So we start with West Africa or East Africa, and each of them working on together. And then before we can embrace the whole of Africa and so on. So there could be many ways to get to one. But the idea is that I think Pan-Africanism is the way forward. But how do we get inspiration? Because a lot of people don't even understand it. A lot of Ghanaians I was telling you, don't even know the meaning of that black star. People have heard people trying to link it to things that are not true. It is the symbol of Pan-Africanism. So we should know that that is what Ghana represents. That's the way forward. But how do we embrace it now in this?
Exactly, because I was going to ask you whether the issue is about quality leadership or lack of vision thereof, or combination of both.
It's both. Because if you have the vision, then that's leadership. That's why I was saying what made Nkrumah ahead of his contemporaries was because he had a vision. The rest did not really have a vision. They just wanted to embrace what the British or colonial masters were and just wanted power to be transferred to them. But Nkrumah understood that there was a bigger picture for the African and the black man. And it's inspiring, yes, but today we are unable to put that vision in perspective and to meet today's challenges. And we can't always be looking back and saying, I mean, we had this vision, we had a great African once upon a time. I think we need to now start developing the leadership that we need to propel us forward. And it's with us, but it's a question of we have to have the humility, we have to have the unity too. One thing I would say Ghana has been blessed with is that although we have competition, political competition, I think we didn't really take it to the extreme. So I'll give you a very interesting example. When I was a young person then, when I returned to Ghana from exile in 75, 76, I used to go to the sports, across sports stadium to watch soccer. Then I had the privilege of being in the VIP section. And I used to meet, or see rather, before meeting him, General Ankara. And I made a conscious effort to go and greet him anytime I saw him there.
Right.
Which that spirit, I think we grew up in it as Ghanaians. That we still, whatever the differences in the past or the present, we embrace each other, which I think is very positive. And I think as Ghanaians, we should be proud of it. But beyond that, I think we need to search for, although we can have differences, but at the end of the day, we need to have a vision that can bring us all together, unite us, difference of, tribalism, there are a bit of political tribalism here and there, but still, the unity of us as Ghanaians
It has to be.
has pushed us forward.
Let me recollect some of the sayings of your late father when he said that the African is capable of managing his or her own affairs. Now, tracing back to 67 years after, and the fact that, for example, we are still even under an IMF program. We've been there 17 times. That statement and the reality of today, was it premature, or the fact that we've not taken our destiny into our own hands? And what can we do going forward, especially?
Oh, there are Ghanaians outside Ghana who are doing very well, professionally and so on. So, yes, the African is capable of anything. But the point is that the system back home, because that's what I'm saying, we have to understand why we are in this position. We are in this position because of we were colonized, and then the new colonialism, what Nkrumah talked about. So there's still that pressure from outside to exploit our resources. And once you look at it, they have the capital, the technology, and all that. Of course, it's very difficult to resist them. But I'm saying that individually, it's more difficult. If we do it collectively, we can have a path to victory. But the point is that we have to understand what Pan-Africanism represents or means today, because it's not Pan-Africanism. I'm wearing African like kente, or I'm wearing smoke and so on.
Right.
No, Pan-Africanism goes beyond that. It's what is in your mind and head. So we need to understand what Pan-Africanism is and how we can relate it to our development. I think if we do that, we will be able to make headway. I mean, you're talking about industrialization and all that. Yeah, this thing comes with money, capital, and all that. So the point is that there are resources out there. I remember there was an economist years back when I used to do some radio stations, I think from Brazil, who gave the example that there's wealth even within the so-called poor people or poor communities and so on. And a very good example is that when Ghanaians are trying to go outside, young people trying to have a better future outside, they find the money to buy the visa, get the air tickets and all that.
Yeah.
So it means that even in our so-called
Poor states.
poverty, there is wealth in there, but it's how to use it. And if you have the ambition and the drive to go to a certain direction, I think you'll be able to mobilize that. Somehow it's difficult to see why the political parties have failed to guide us. But again, it's because of the lack of vision. And I think when you put the corruption on top of that, then you can see the state of our nation.
All right, Sekou, now let's talk about the political leadership. And I'm asking this question because perhaps you can help us to understand the thinking of sometimes the kind of leaders we elect to lead us. Now, you played a bit of a role during the Mills administration, and at some point you left. Now, help us understand how they think and whether or not they are there to serve our interests or sometimes their personal interests.
No, I think the biggest problem is that we make a lot of promises, the leaders make a lot of promises, but when they're in office, they seem to be overwhelmed with the problems. And like the Professor Mills example you gave, I was frustrated. I was put in somewhere, and I was frustrated with what was going on. But what I realized is that the problem was that we are doing business as usual. So the leadership did not really have a vision, did not have a blueprint that, okay, we need to do things differently to improve the situation. We can't continue doing the same thing. So I think they become overwhelmed. And lack of it is that the courage to say that, okay, no, we want to do things differently. But this is a more complicated era in democracy, because when you had like Rawlings in the 80s, when he came to power, then he could do whatever he wanted to do. But unfortunately, he also lacked people around him, like intellectuals, who would guide him in a certain direction. I think he lacked that. And he himself had the drive and the energy, which is good for leadership, but I think he lacked the intellectual capacity in a sense. But again, it's the background. We don't all come from, we don't all have the same experiences growing up and developing. So I think part of it is that the leadership of what is NPP and NDC, they fail to do things different. But doing things differently does not mean to be extremely radical and then kind of doing things wrongly in a wrong way. That doesn't make sense. Because, I mean, I'm in the US today, I'm following the elections here. It is shocking for many of us that Trump is making a comeback. and now it's head to head with Biden. So shocking in many ways, and it shows not only in the so-called developing countries that we lack good leadership, even in the so-called superpowers, that sometimes the leadership is completely bankrupt and so on different levels. And yet you wonder how they have the support and people are pushing them forward. So it's we need that exceptional leadership, but how do we, people like Nkrumah will come once in a while. They don't come every day.
Right.
But I believe there are exceptional Ghanaians in Ghana or outside. So how do we then look for those exceptional Ghanaians? How do we work with those exceptional Ghanaians, give them the opportunity to rise? And
how would the system allow them to rise? Would the system allow them to rise?
Well, we don't have a choice now because we are not making much progress. We are going around in circles and pretending to be serving the country. I mean, these political leaders. So there must be a radical change. I mean, there are a lot of people outside even politics. I mean, on social media, people complaining, coming up, academics or intellectuals who come up with all kinds of reasons why Ghana is not doing well and so on. But then where are they on the political scene? So we need to give everybody that opportunity. And of course, people have it is necessary for people to also get involved. And so when I was living in Ghana then a few years back, I got involved at some point. That's how then I joined the NDC because I saw it was more realistic working with NDC than with CPP. But yes, you get frustrated and all that, but that's part of life. I mean, you fall, you rise again and so on, you continue the struggle. But I think wisdom is what is most important. So if I give again personal example, Nkrumah lived in the US for 10 years and got the inspiration. He was an exceptional person. Look at what he did when he came back to Ghana. I have been living in the US for 10 years. I don't have any inspiration from the world I live in. But this is the first world country or developed country and so on. There's everything here. I appreciate the infrastructure and all the good things happening here. But at the same time, why am I unable to put this experience and be able to translate it to affect God back home and our people? So the point is that, yes, because I'm not an extraordinary person. So that's why I would say that within these political parties, we need to find the exceptional persons and have the humility to say that, oh, Sekou, I don't have the capacity to lead. Let's look for the person who can lead. And we all support that person. You see, so sometimes we need that, but not look at it that, it's those who have the resources, those who have. I mean, that was the argument. Nkrumah came with nothing. He had nothing. People were, the rich guys backed him during the UGCC, and then later they were able to mobilize money because of his energy and political strategy and so on.
All right.
So his leadership is very crucial at this point. So understanding our vision.
Right. So just two last questions so that I can let you go. First, I mean, you are in the US, but clearly you follow events happening in Ghana. We are heading towards another elections in December to elect president, the members of parliament. I don't know your expectations of them and the kind of leadership we need. Now, last week, our parliament passed a law that criminalizes activities of the LGBTIQ community, and there has been a blowback on the president says that he will wait for the Supreme Court to take a decision on the matter before he will give his assent or otherwise to the bill. What is your reaction to that? And of course, as we head towards the election, what do you expect of the kind of leaders that we should vote for?
Yeah, you'll be surprised that even in the US, there are a lot of conservatives who don't appreciate this whole homosexual propaganda around homosexuality and so on, or promoting homosexuality. But definitely for us in Africa, most African countries, we are not comfortable with it. So obviously, it should not be imposed on us. That is not to say that there are people there are no homosexuals in Africa or in our traditional setting or whatever. But the point is that, yes, we need to respect people's rights, human rights and all that. And people should have the choice to choose their own path or way of life. But at the same time, it cannot be imposed on us. And I think that's the idea. The West tries to impose some of these things on us, and it has no relevance. And we should, as a people, embrace those things if we want to. So let our people decide. So the leadership should have that sense of understanding that, it's our people, our culture, cultural values and so on that should determine whether you should embrace homosexuality or not. But that's not to say that there are not homosexuals among us, but that's their business. But now the other question is...
on the elections coming up in December?
Yes, very interesting. It's again NDC, MPP. Personally, I'm not putting anybody down. I'm making choices. But it looks like 2024 will favor the NDC because of the economic situation and hardship in the country. And again, the corruption, I think MPP was not able to shake off the corruption. So personally, I'll be surprised if NDC does not win. But of course, it wouldn't be a wide because the two parties are strong on the ground. But my problem is with the leadership because you see, again, we go back to Mahama with the NDC. I have personally nothing against Mahama. I think he's a nice guy or gentleman. But the problem is that under his leadership, did we do things that were different that would move us forward? Did he have the strength, the strong-mindedness to really say that, no, let's do things different? Did he show that he has a vision for Ghana? These are the question marks that I'm not comfortable with. So it tells me that, yes, we have a change, but then we get back to the same situation whereby we have had a change and then we are unable to move forward. So something drastic needs to happen within our political parties. But I think, so the young people, they need to rise, but they have to have a vision before.
Right.
You see, you can't rise
without
and
any vision.
challenge the old guard or the establishment without having a vision to move it forward. And we'll go back to the example of Nkrumah. He had the Pan-African vision. So he knew what to do and how to move. Yes, he made his mistakes. Yes, could have taken us to different directions and so on, which people are today as well, with the collapse of communism and so on. People are not finding it difficult to embrace or give credit to socialism. But that is the duty of now, or responsibility of the young people to repackage some of these ideas. So yes, even in the US, capitalist state and all that, but then there are a lot of socialists. There's a lot of socialist interventions that they have to take care of the people and the poor people, and they can't just leave them on their own. Yes, you have the rich people who are making the money, developing the country, controlling the political parties like we have home. But at the same time, somebody has to also care for the people who are less privileged, to give them a better education. So you see, here, there are a lot of public schools that push the government invested, although it's a capitalist or state, but then it invests a lot in public education. Why? Because it needs to push the people up. So look at our public education in Ghana is very poor.
Right.
The infrastructure and so on. So we need to have leadership that can understand our challenges and try and create a vision that can also inspire us and make all of us want to be part of that vision. You see, that's also, again, good leadership, where people see your leadership, your wisdom, where you want to take us and want to be part of it.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Sekou Nkrumah, for your time this afternoon, and regards to your family in Arizona. All right, Dr. Sekou Nkrumah sharing his thoughts as Ghana celebrates 67 years of independence. Now, away from the celebration, another matter that's related to 6 March, and of course, a date engraved with both promise and skepticism, Ghanaians hold their breath, questioning the fate of the National Cathedral, a colossal undertaking that has devoured $58 million, yet struggles to ascend beyond the ground it was meant to transform. The imminent commissioning hangs in suspense, leaving the nation to wonder, will today mark the realization of a grand vision or the unveiling of a multi-million-dollar crifter? There's more in this report.
Lead up to the 2016 general elections, President Akufo-Addo vowed to build Africa's largest cathedral if elected, a personal promise he made to God. On Ghana's 60th independence anniversary, March 6, 2017, it looked like the pledge was going to be fulfilled when President Akufo-Addo broke ground for the cathedral construction to begin.
My house shall be called the house of prayer for all people. That is what we have begun today.
It was until 2020 that actual work began. after the homes of some justices of the Court of Appeal and key infrastructure were pulled down, all nicely put, relocated. Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta, during the 2019 budget presentation, pledged that the cathedral would not be a financial strain on the state, as a substantial portion of the funds will be sourced from donations.
The 100 cedis a month club, also dubbed Kitwe Biarensa. The aim of the club is to raise 1 million Ghanaians who will give 100 cedis a month for the construction of the National Cathedral.
This song will soon change. A chunk of the $58 million spent on the project so far has come from national coffers. Ken Ofori-Atta himself told Parliament when he was summoned in November for a censure hearing. Government gave $25 million as seed money towards the project, and later another $35 million. The message was clear.
For his blessings to us as a nation. I'm proud to announce to the nation that we have commissioned one of the most iconic of contemporary global architects and a son of Ghana, David Adjaye, as the main architect for the project.
The project attracted a lot of criticism, which grew louder after COVID-19 threw the economy out of gear. For many, 100 million interdenominational cathedral was not a priority. Interest groups poured onto the streets to protest.
Justice for Ghana has taken a resolute stand that we don't want anything there to be called a cathedral.
They were not alone. Chiefs voiced their displeasure. In Parliament, the debate was extensive.
Passing by will poke fun at you. Yes. He started something he couldn't finish. This is the word of the Lord.
For the Board of Trustees of the project, this was all but a spiritual warfare.
The times are difficult, and that's what gives me hope that never mind how difficult times are, some people will willingly support.
The president described the detractors of the project as Sanballat and Tobias.
Just like Sanballat and Tobias, in the days of Nehemiah, there are some who do not share my view on the building of the National Cathedral. I respect their right to differ, but I'm confident in my decision.
In January that same year, President Akufo-Addo made a personal donation of $8,000 towards the construction cost, saying nothing will stop him from fulfilling his pledge to God.
By the vast numbers of enthusiastic supporters of this project, whose spiritual dimension is limitless.
In October 2023, Duncan Williams and Eastwood Anaba resigned as board members. Before the National Cathedral's completion, Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta announced its commissioning date for March 6, 2024.
And following the program of the contractors, and with God helping us, the National Cathedral is expected to be officially commissioned on March 6, 2024.
For $58 million, the contractor moved to site, dug a foundation, and buried the cornerstone. However, the project has failed to leave the ground. The National Cathedral stands as a deep in the nation's conscience, where the promises of political aspiration crashed with the difficulties of financial reality. The question remains, can the National Cathedral pledge be fulfilled?
Well, the military today blocked some MPs from the NDC side from accessing the National Cathedral site. Member of Parliament for North Town Samuel Akujeto-Ablakwa addressed a news conference at the area earlier today.
Taxes, and we have every right, particularly on the day the president told us in Parliament and assured the country and the Almighty that this project, valued at $450 million, will be commissioned. So we have every right. If 2 years on the project has been abandoned, we have every right to come and demand accountability. And I want to salute all of you standing firm. So we have 13 demands, and I'm going to read those demands clearly, without ambiguity, for the President, who describes these priorities, to respond directly to our demands. And we begin by quoting Malachi 3:8a. Will a man rob God? No. Yet ye have robbed me. So says the word of God. Blessed be his word. Demand number 1. We are demanding an explanation from President Akufo-Addo on why he failed to fulfill his promise to God, to Parliament, and to the sovereign Ghanaian people. The promise to commission his $450 million, that is 5.7 billion Ghana cedis, priority of priorities, Cathedral, today, the 6th of March 2024. We demand an explanation. Demand number 2. We are demanding full accountability on what happened to our 58,141,509 United States dollars and 52 cents. So $58.1 million. That is, at current exchange rate, 740 million Ghana cedis. Why is it that all we see here, just behind us, is the world's most expensive pit? We also want to know why the contractors, Ribade JV, abandoned this project for lack of payment 2 years ago. Despite all of these illegal withdrawals of our taxes, $58 million. 2 years ago, the contractor, Ribade JV, abandoned site for lack of payment. We want answers to this. Number 3, we are demanding a comprehensive report on how much it has cost the state to so far replace and compensate some owners of demolished properties, and how much is still outstanding, considering that aggrieved demolished property owners, such as Waterstone Realty, have resorted to the courts. We note that the following properties were recklessly demolished on the orders of President Akufo-Addo: bungalows for judges, the Judicial Training Institute, Head Office, Scholarship Secretariat, bungalows for Shraj, Waterstone Realty Luxury Apartment Complex, headquarters of Comsys IT firm, and the Malian Ambassador's residence. All of these structures were recklessly and senselessly demolished by the president. We want to know the full cost implications to the taxpayer. Number 4, we are demanding that the contract must be immediately terminated to avoid further financial loss to the state. According to the contract, a copy of which we have, of standing time claims, abortive and reworks costs due to main contractor suspension. So every day that this project remains abandoned, the contract that was signed with Ribade JV, the Ghanaian taxpayer is losing. We have to pay. There is a cost to this abandonment. We have to pay for extension of time, we have to pay for standing time, and we also have to pay for abortive and reworks costs due to the main contractor suspension. Demand number 5. We are demanding that the Board of Trustees of the National Cathedral should be dissolved without delay. Demand number 6. We also demand that the National Cathedral Secretariat should be immediately closed. So far, this secretariat has received a staggering 962,500 Ghana cedis. It's a very expensive secretariat. And as long as this secretariat remains in existence, it is Gazla. We demand that it be closed. We have attached to this demands list the organogram National Cathedral Secretariat. It's a very elaborate organogram, as you can see. So you have the board of trustees, you have the board secretary, you have the secretary, you have consultants, operation, of construction, administration and finance, revenue mobilization, the cathedral church affairs, museums and gardens, communications. Then you have an office manager. Then you have secretarial staff. Then you have volunteers, interns, and national service personnel. So it's a very elaborate structure. And we are demanding that after all of this financial loss to the state, this complex secretariat should be closed down immediately. Demand number 7. We are demanding the immediate retrieval of our taxes from the following persons. Architect David Ajay, who has so far pocketed $19.6 million. That is 250 million Ghana cedis. We demand a refund. Carrie Summers, who is based in the United States of America, he is also keeping our $6 million. That is 76 million Ghana cedis. We demand a refund. Then there is Reverend Victor Kusi-Boateng, Kwabna Edu Jemfi, the infamous. We are demanding our 2.6 million Ghana cedis from all of these people. Demand number 8. We are also demanding a publication of the Deloitte audit, which was promised the Ghanaian people on the 24th of January 2023. It's been more than a year since the National Cathedral put out a statement signed by the chairman of the board of trustees, Professor Opoku Onyina, that they are inviting Deloitte to audit. Since 24th January 2023, it's been more than a year. Where is that audit? We are demanding a full publication of the audit. Demand number 9. The MPP caucus in Parliament should desist from sabotaging the impending parliamentary probe after a unanimous parliamentary resolution. The MPP's unpatriotic conduct by deliberately delaying the submission of names of their members to the Right Honourable Speaker for the committee to commence work is most condemnable. So you are all aware. But for this delay by our colleagues on the MPP side, Parliament should have instituted a probe long ago, 6 months ago. They are refusing to submit membership of the committee from their side. We demand and urge all Ghanaian citizens to put pressure on their MPP MPs to be patriotic as them. Demand number 10. We are appealing to Shraj to expedite action and publish the outcome of their investigations following my petition to them on the 16th of January 2023. Demand number 11. That the Board of Trustees and the National Cathedral Secretariat account for all private donations so far received. We note that they are still, every now and then, they are still doing adverts, demanding private donations. We ask that they account fully. They have never accounted for that. In the same vein, we are also demanding that they account fully for their infamous United States of America operations. They have never accounted to us how much they have raised from the United States of America. Demand number 12. We are calling on all the prosecutorial institutions to immediately commence the prosecution of all those who have caused this gross financial loss to the state. You can't spend $58 million to only dig a pit. When Bishop Dag Heward-Mills was resigning, he said he is so embarrassed that after all of these taxpayer withdrawals, all he sees is a pit. Bishop Dag Heward-Mills, before he resigned, he expected that the state will act. Before Pastor Otabil resigned, before Archbishop Duncan Williams resigned, before Reverend Sud Anaba resigned, remember they were demanding an audit. Didn't get that audit. We are saying that we demand immediate prosecution of all those who have caused this monumental financial loss, a loss that is unseen in the history of our country, an unprecedented loss. Finally, we call for a national debate leading to a possible national consensus on what should happen to the world's most expensive pit. Some have suggested a specialist children's hospital, which Ghana currently lacks. We also note that recently, the Secretary General of the TU, Dr. Anthony Yauba, suggested that the place be converted to a hospital. We are of the view that we need to have a way forward.
And that's the Member of Parliament for North Tongue and some NDC MPs at a news conference on the National Cathedral building. Now, we reached out to the Secretariat of the National Cathedral and they've declined comment, at least for now. Let me take you outside the shores of Ghana and let's talk about the German Air Force spying scandal. Now, it's begun after Russia intercepted and released a sensitive discussion among high-ranking German military officers concerning Ukraine. The German government accused Russian President Vladimir Putin of seeking to sow disunity and create division within Germany. DW's Michaela Kafner joins me live from Berlin for more on this. Now, let me start for you, Michaela. First, what were the military officers discussing in that sensitive conversation?
Well, they were discussing the specifics of the potential impact of the Taurus missiles that Germany is at this point in time still refusing to send to Ukraine for the very reason that the German Chancellor in particular is concerned that it could provoke Russia. And they were talking about specifics of the Kerch Bridge that connects mainland Russia with Crimea that was occupied by Russia in 2014. It's Ukrainian territory under international law. And there was very specific debate about how many missiles you would require to blow up that particular bridge, because it would be seen as a prime target for Ukraine if Germany was to send that particular weapons system. So it was very concrete, it was very damaging, and it sparked a lot of internal political debate here in Germany, something the German defense minister described as deliberate by Russia, which he says clearly tried to create at least confusion, ideally a rift between political parties here in Germany, but also between NATO allies.
So how has the German government reacted beyond criticizing Russia?
Well, the German defense minister, Boris Pistorius, I was in the room when he really spoke about the first investigation launched into this. He said he refuses to play Russia's game on this. Also, the timing of this release by Russia was very telling. It came on the day that here in Germany it was reported that a former executive of Wirecard was exposed as a Russian spy. He's under investigation. Wirecard, of course, a financial transaction company that went bankrupt, that clearly was potentially even set up to damage the German economy and politics. So it came on the very same day, and that is also being read as part of what is being described by the German government as a communications war by Russia. But that didn't stop the opposition here of describing the German Chancellor himself as a security risk. So clearly, at least one aim was reached by Russia. that there is not just heated debate, but more criticism of a chancellor who's already struggling to hold together a very shaky three-way coalition that is, to a large part, busy fighting with itself rather than actually discussing on how to fight back against Russia in Ukraine.
So how is this affecting Germany's relation, especially with its allies?
Well, there has been criticism and there is a context. The German Chancellor last week let it slip, to say the very least, publicly, that there are potentially military personnel by France and Britain on the ground in Ukraine to fine-tune the targeting of similar weapon system to the Taurus that Germany is not sending. And that sparked quite a bit of criticism, particularly publicly from Britain. We're also hearing that not so publicly from France. This makes Germany look pretty bad in a NATO context. Having said that, when you talk about the working level, there is, yes, a political fallout, but NATO, if you talk to NATO, they say that the alliance is still absolutely determined to stick together. But there are rifts between the German and the French government in particular, and unless they find a way to not just gloss this over, but to work it out, there is a weakening of the Western alliance, and that would be seen for sure as at least a partial success for Russia. So that's what also the German defense minister sees as the homework right now, to stick together and to not let more leaks occur, although it would be naive to think that those don't happen all the time around the world. It's just rather telling that Russia chose to release it. Usually this is kept secret.
Right, thank you very much, Michaela Kafner. She's with our partners, the DW in Germany. Well, that's our show on this 67th edition of Ghana's Independence. For more stories, log on to our website, myjoyonline.com. We worked for our democratic system. It wasn't given at independence. That's President Akufo-Addo, Education Ministry, PRO, clarifies alleged 68.5 million spending on photocopying for Wasi Pasco. We have the full text of the president's speech. I'm exceedingly proud of my record in office. Again, President Akufo, and also the picture of former President Mahama and his wife. I look forward to many more years of making memories. Mahama celebrates wife on her birthday today. Now, has the fourth Republican Constitution delivered? That's next on Joy News. My name is Elton Brober. See you tomorrow between 3 and 5 for another exciting edition. Have a good evening.